Let's go, everybody.
Caltrop is an area denial weapon designed to stop the enemy. The Caltrop is a sturdy, simple, yet effective weapon no matter its position. Its purpose was originally designed to stop elephant and donkey attacks. It graduated to stopping tanks. And now, the Caltrop is your defense against propaganda, polished lies, and manufactured outrage. It's free from counterfeit credibility and synthetic truth. However, inside the walls of the Caltrop, you're going to be forced to think. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Mike Calderese is the Caltrop.
Coming down the mountain from the heaven to the hell. The Mike Calderese, the Caltrop, he never stops, so ring the bell. He bring the facts, he's been up every morning till we sleep. He get it deep, Mike Calderese, in your head and in your sheets. And we don't mind, and we don't care, Mike Calderese is the Caltrop. And we don't mind, and we don't care, Mike Calderese is the Caltrop. And we don't mind, and we don't care, Mike Calderese is the Caltrop.
Welcome, everybody, to the Caltrop. This is actually the brick breakdown right after the Caltrop, and I have a special guest that is coming up. I was just going to play it. We recorded this on Sunday. I was just going to play it without saying anything, but I feel the need to say something. After this is over, I think what everybody has to understand is that without any level of communication, we have nothing. Without any level of understanding, we have nothing. Now, whether you believe what Mordechai is about to say or not, it's not the point of this conversation. The point is to learn. The point is to hear from the other side. The point is to have conversations with people that may not agree with you. God forbid we have a conversation with people that we have to interact with every single day that, at some point we're either going to be fighting or we're going to be talking. And I'd rather talk for now, right? I'd rather have a conversation and see what can we work out. Can we get these things out there for everybody to understand? And maybe all of us have a little bit of understanding of what each side is seeing. Because one of the things I'm going to tell everybody right now, the fact that there's two sides in this entire thing is ridiculous. The fact that there's two sides, two communities, two separate communities living in one community is the problem. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be called an anti-Semite from some, and I'm going to be called a Jew lover from other people. And I really don't give a shit. Excuse my language. I try to keep this a little bit family friendly. But I don't care. I really don't care what I'm called. I don't care what everybody says about me. I don't care. Because the bottom line is, all these things are going to be said about me. The most concerning thing is how people think I'm going to be destroyed for bringing you this conversation. People are worried that I need to put cameras up on my house. People are worried about my safety because I'm about to bring you a conversation where I speak very candidly, very respectably about a situation that's going on in New Jersey, in Ocean County, and it's a situation, it's a big situation. But everybody, I want to make one thing very, very, very clear to every single person that's watching right now. I don't care what you call me. I don't care. I don't care about the people that are going to think I'm going easy on Mordechai. I don't care about the people that think I'm going too hard on him. I don't care about what you think. What I care about is getting the truth out there, getting the conversation started, and giving you information about what is happening. That's it. It's all I care about. Call me what you will after this from both sides. Have fun. Do better. Because if you think you could do this better than me, then do it. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to have people calling me up saying, hey, Mike, I worry about your safety. I'd rather just hang out with my wife and my kids. But I think I have a certain ability to where I could bring you guys conversations. And I'm at a point where I think it has to happen. I think if it doesn't happen, we're going to have serious problems. So if you want to think I'm anything, anti-Semite, whatever, yes, I am. I'm telling you that right off the bat. If you want to think I'm a Jew lover, yes, I am. I'm telling you that right off the bat. I am whatever you want me to be, and I don't give a shit because I know who I am. I don't have to explain myself to anybody, and I'm not. What I'm going to tell you is the Brick Breakdown is going to be giving you conversations like you're about to hear. These are conversations that you need to hear. These are conversations that, you know what? I don't care if you believe what you hear or not. I don't care. You need to hear it. We need to talk. We need a dialogue opened. And after that dialogue, if we can't come up with a solution, then we know there's a real problem and we need to go at it. But we can't just fight blind. It's a problem on both sides. Neither side understands what the other side is saying, but they want to lob labels at each other. It's something that I'm going to be fighting against. I do not like false narratives. I don't like fake. I like truth. And in my effort to bring you the truth, I am bringing you Mordechai Bernstein. Mordechai Bernstein, I am not going to disrespect. I want to let everybody know right off the bat, nobody is my enemy until you make me your enemy. There are certain groups of people and there are certain individuals that have done that. Mordecai is not one of them. All of one community is not one of them. Select groups, select people sometimes represent everybody in a certain group of people. And I'm trying to break this. I'm trying to figure out what's real and what's fake. And the only way to do that is to sit down with people that, you know what, maybe we don't understand. And because we don't understand them is the reason why I want to sit down and talk to them. I think we had two incredible conversations. This, I'm bringing you one of them. We had a preview for this, which is basically the same conversation. Now, an hour goes fast. We talked about a lot of things, Mordecai and I think I'd call him Morty at this point. Maybe call me Mikey. I don't like being called that, but it's all right. You call me Mikey, Morty. But I hope this is the first step to understanding what's happening. And maybe if we could all understand this together, we could actually come together in a real way to get a situation where everyone can live with, because that's what has to take place. Otherwise, we got to fight. And I'm going to be honest with you, if it comes down to it, I'm cool with that too. I'm not sure anybody wants to fight anymore. I think everybody's tired of fighting. Maybe we could talk. And if you want to tell me how I could do better, please do so in the chat. Please do so however you need to do so. Okay? But try to be respectful when you do it. I'm cool with you telling me what you think I did wrong. And if any time you want to step in this seat in front of this mic, I welcome anybody to do so. But I thank every single one of you guys that have taken the time to watch this. I apologize. I did not want to do this beforehand. I just wanted to play this. But I see a lot of assumptions being made before you people have even listened to what has to be said and to what anybody has said. So I'm going to ask you guys nicely, when you're on my page, Be respectful to everybody. I am free speech. I am not going to take down what you post. I'm not going to take down anything unless it's absolutely ridiculous that's going to get our page completely banned from everything, and that's not going to help anybody. And I know who some of you are. But I'm going to tell everybody that right now, I'm going to give everybody truth regardless of what's said about me. But in return, I would like you guys to be respectful when you're on my page so we can continue doing this. Or some of the assholes are going to get singled out on the page. It's going to get reported, and I'm going to get shut down because of some of you. And it's, the people that are watching right now, I don't mean to point you out, but if you see it, bring it to me. But what I want is open, honest dialogue. And so far, I have not seen one conversation, not one, that you are about to take place and you're about to watch right now. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring up Mordechai Bernstein. He is the council president. I'm going to introduce him, obviously, but I would like to give him a proper introduction now. This is Mordechai Bernstein. He is the council president of Jackson, New Jersey. He is an Orthodox Jewish man. He is willing to come on the show and talk to me. The fact that he's doing that deserves respect. We're about to have a respectful discussion. I hope afterwards all of you can tell me your true, honest thoughts about it. Whether you're on one side or the other, I'd like to start a dialogue. I'd like to start a little bit of understanding. And without further ado, let me bring up Mordechai Bernstein, Jackson Council President. Thank you guys for watching Brick Breakdown. Finger the hell out of my like button, share this, and let's get this out because I'm telling you, we have a lot to learn. We better learn to live with each other. That's all I'm going to say. All right, everybody. I have got a treat for you. This is, everybody has watched me, has known that I challenge people to come on my show on a daily basis. And I've been challenging people for years. And nobody has wanted to come on my show until one person. I challenged him one time. And then what did he do? He called me through Facebook and said, yes, I'm willing to come on your show. Then we had an hour and a half long conversation. It was a great conversation. And then, lo and behold, he is here. Let me introduce you to a man who is the Jackson president of the council. This is Mordechai Bernstein. Morty Bernstein, welcome to the Brick Breakdown. How are you, sir?
Not bad. Thank you for having me. It's a long Sunday, long weekend, so I know everyone's time is precious, but I'm looking forward to an engaging conversation. So thank you for having me. And I don't know, I'm not sure why people are afraid of you. You seem to be a nice guy so far, so I'm ready to roll.
So listen, we had a really candid conversation. And after that conversation, you were still willing to come on, which makes me very happy, honestly, because you know what I think is going on, I think there's a lot of misunderstandings, both, honestly, I think you would say with Jackson politics, right? And I think there's a lot of misunderstandings with just the mix-up of the communities. And what I would love to do is just kind of go through a couple of those things and I want to hear your side on both of them, right? So let's start with Jackson. The last time we spoke, I don't think you thought Chris was going to win, and Chris won. What do you think that means when it comes to Jackson politics, that he won overwhelmingly? But what do you think that tells you guys about maybe what you have been doing and what you maybe want to do in the future?
So first of all, congratulations to Chris and congratulations to his entire team. I think you were a little bit of a part of his team, so congratulations to anyone who helped out over there. I've had the opportunity in speaking to Chris. I spent today about 6 hours together with him by a food drive in Jackson. And I got a chance to interact with him on a personal level. And there's a man behind the mask, as they say in English sometimes. And he's a personable guy. Seems to be a great guy, someone who's passionate and cares. I think the underlining point that I found to be missing in this campaign, and I think hopefully that we'll be able to bring out through we're working together with Chris Pollock, is a more communication with the residents, more explanation of why things are going on, or what we can do, what we can't do, and then more hopefully bridging those gaps that do exist between the different parts of Jackson and really the whole entire Ocean County. So I think Chris tapped in to a lot of people's frustrations, and their legitimate frustrations. And when I met with Chris, I told him straight out, when he went through his list of his issues and priorities that he wants to accomplish, 90%, if not more, of those issues are things that I agree with. And I think the vast majority of Jackson residents, whether they're Orthodox, whether they're not Orthodox, whether they're new to Jackson, whether they're here for a while, 90+% of those issues are things people agree to. And sometimes, and some of those are things that we've been working on, but maybe we didn't do a good enough job explaining to the public. Maybe people were frustrated because they looked at the current council, which is really a new council in a certain way. We all basically are there for about a year or 2 years. They look at us as being just the tip of the iceberg with all the issues that have been going on. And I think working together with Chris, and I think hopefully resolving some of these issues that we are working on, or at least explain to the public what we can do, what we can't do, I think will go a long way. So like I said, I think many of Chris's issues that he ran on and he discussed and brought up, whether it's overdevelopment, whether it was, allegations of corruption in government and politics, whether it was, the rental issue, multiple families living in a single family home. And then there are going to be issues that we're going to agree to disagree on. And I think that's fine. That's part of politics. You have Democrats, you have Republicans, you have conservatives, you have liberals. That's fine in government. And listen, I'm a very conservative person when it comes to my political views, but I also understand if you want good government, you have to be effective. You have to reach across the aisle. And in local politics, conservative, liberal isn't as important, obviously. But I think I think Chris tapped into a lot of people's frustrations have been building for a very long time, long before I was in government. And I think he did a great job communicating, reaching out. He campaigned like no one else. He was out there everywhere you went. You heard that Chris Pollock was there, shaking hands, introducing himself, and listening to people. And I think that's something which has been missing in government for a long time, not just in Jackson, I think all over. And I think he did a great job. And I'm looking forward to taking some of those ideas and things that he has heard and bringing them to government. And I'm not going to get to the specifics now this early in the show, but Chris brought up something to me today. I've already reached out to Mayor Kuhn, and we've already talked to our legal team. It's a great idea. It was a simple, just putting brains in the room and figuring something out. And it was a small piece that we can possibly do that will hopefully bring attention to our rental issue. So yeah, I'm looking forward to working with him. And
so when we first had our conversation, if you remember how it ended, I said the ball, and I hope you get back this up. I said, I spoke to Chris and I spoke to you now for an extended period of time, and you both sound very much alike. And if you remember what I said, I wish you guys can come together, because I think it would be a great representation of what can happen. And the fact that you've done that and that answer, honestly, was a great way to start this off. Now let's talk about a couple of things more, because you brought up a number of real issues, and I would like to kind of just drill down on some of them. Right? You said he was good at communicating why things are going on, legit frustrations, and 90% of the things that you agree with. Those are some of the things that you said right there. Now, let's take the 90% of the things that you agree with and put that aside for a second. And because I do think that matters. And I think everyone has to realize that is a real situation. But let's talk about the legit frustrations. Let me ask you a question. When you look at the frustrations of the people and the people of Jackson, to where that they have lived there forever, right? And you see their frustrations, do you view them as just anti-Semitic frustrations, or do you view them as legit frustrations that need to be dealt with?
Sure. So I look at people at the vast majority, and I say the vast majority of people's frustrations as legit frustrations that need to be dealt with. And I'm going to say I've been involved in government in Jackson, coming to meetings for approximately 10 years. And I think that what was missing is no one ever explained and articulated to people why certain changes possibly needed to happen, And instead, people felt like changes were rammed down their throats, and people didn't feel heard. So I completely do feel that when someone's been living here for a long time, whether it's 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, or 60 years, and changes happen, people don't like change. It could be good change. It could be bad change. I like having the same dinner 3 nights a week. That's the way I work. And when people see that change coming, even if it's good change, and even in cases where it's things that they perceive as being bad change, I think it's a legitimate thing that you have to deal with and you have to reckon with. And I think we could, as a township and as a government, and as all governments, do a better job of communicating and making people feel that you understand their change. Now, like I said, there are going to be certain times where it's impossible to fully feel it. There's going to be cultural differences and religious differences and things that you just can't 100% feel as much as you try your hardest to feel. But you have to try. And I think trying goes a long way. And so back to your question, do I think the vast majority of people's concerns are based on anti-Semitism? Absolutely not. I think the vast majority of people's concerns are based on change, and people don't want change. And yes, does it possibly lead to people saying things and doing things that maybe they shouldn't? Yes, it happens. To the vast majority of people, no, but it definitely does occur. And people get sensitive, and people are sensitive in a changing, evolving environment. And I think as leaders, it's our job to step up to the plate. And Mike, you're one of those leaders. You have a microphone. It's our job to step up to the plate and keep everyone calm and try our best to articulate why some of those changes are possibly occurring, and what we can do sometimes to find alternative plans to some of those changes. Sometimes we could, and sometimes we can't, but at least we have to try.
No, Morty, and I agree with you, man. And this is why I really respect you for coming on. And this is why I want to have a frank conversation with you, because I'm one of these type of people that don't believe all of our communities are so far off for the people, right? So what everyone, I think, has to realize is when I speak a certain way, I think generalizations happen when you have powerful groups doing something that reflect on everybody in that group, right? And I think anybody that's white, if you want to classify that, understands that concept. White people are blamed for all the things that the powerful groups in their party do. And the same thing with everybody that's in the Ocean County community. You have many powerful groups that are kind of clashing with each other. And then I think everybody gets sucked into that version. So when I say certain things, I try not to generalize. I don't mean the people, I mean the groups, right? So when you say like people don't feel heard, when you say people don't feel like, when you say like that, I think people don't feel heard in Ocean County. And what I think happens is you have a situation where people get told that they are something, where they get labeled something that they're not. And all they're trying to do is say, you know what? I don't want the double standards. I don't want people being able to act the way other people act. And when they say certain things like that, they immediately get labeled with things, right? And I don't feel like that is a very productive way to go about being neighbors with each other. Because if we're being honest, Morty, I think one of the biggest issues is there feels like there's two different communities going on. It feels like there's the Jewish community, and now a lot of people don't know this, but there's apparently many different sects of the Jewish community. That's it, right? But it feels like there's the Jewish community, and then there's everybody else. And it feels like the everybody else is not being heard. It feels like the everybody else, the second they speak up, they're being labeled something. The second they speak up about, hey, I wasn't able to do this, why are they able to do this? And it's in the name of religion. They are labeled something, and they're called names, and they're based on that name. Then it gets, everything gets pushed down their throat. And I think that's where a lot of the problems come. I think that's where a lot of the frustration comes. I think the amount of people here, like you said, 90%, I think we agree. And I think a lot of people don't want double standards. But the problem is, when you have a powerful group like your group, things get rammed down, people like mine's throat. And when we speak up about it, we're labeled something. I'm just wondering, and I know I went off a lot about this, but what's your take on that and my perspective of it? And I'm not going to say I speak for everybody in Ocean County, but I think I can speak clearly for a number of different people to where, it feels like certain groups are able to do certain things. And if we don't have the money or the backing or the group or the religion behind it, we're not allowed to do certain things. And I think it's a double standard that people have a problem with the most Tell me if I'm wrong with that.
So I think I think you're right. If there is a double standard, I'm going to politely disagree on the double standard label being thrown out. I think sometimes there is an automatic perception. Listen, when I moved to Jackson, when I first came, I felt there was a double standard the other way around. I had no one to talk to. When I picked up the phone, when I went to a town meeting, when I sent an email, no one ever responded to my emails. And I think there's automatically going to be a perception when change happens that, hey, why did this change happen? If this wasn't allowed, we weren't allowed to do X, Y, and Z in our homes. Why are they allowed to do X, Y, and Z in their homes? And I think I think if we give more information and a better explanation of why those things are being allowed, people may realize not everything's a double standard. I used the word before, powerful. I'm not powerful. And maybe people think I'm powerful. I'm one person. There's a lot of good people out there. There's a lot of people who just and I'm forgetting the book that the example I'm using here. But when a lot of good people come together, that creates a power. And that's really what happened with Chris's election. A lot of people came together and they elected a gentleman by the name of Chris Pollock. That's power, when a lot of small voices come together. And do I think there are times that double standard is applied? Absolutely. It's like that in every society. But I think there's an automatic double standard that applies. No, but and again, speaking for Jackson in particular, I think unfortunately Jackson went so far in one way, and they did mess up in certain areas, which a simple Google search shows. I always tell people we're the only town in New Jersey, and in the country probably, that was sued by the Trump federal government and by the Murphy state government for the same thing. So, and I think that we need to stop and realize our town did make mistakes. And because of those mistakes, certain decisions had to be made. And we did, because of that, we are paying the price for those mistakes. But does that mean that we're living in a society or an environment where there's double standard? I'm not sure. But again, to answer your question, there are times where double standard, I'm sure, does apply. And I think the job of the citizens and leaders like yourself and others to stop and say, okay, guys, is this a double standard, or is there a better reason? And if there's a better reason, we have to explain it to the public. And again, going back to that, I don't think that message is getting out there. Why is X, Y, and Z allowed? Maybe it's because the town made a mistake in 2016 and got in trouble legally, and they lost their jurisdiction, and not because there's a double standard. It's because it was an error, and the town got punished for those errors. And again, I'm not blaming anyone in particular, but the reality is certain things became out of our control that we would like to be in our control, but we just have to be cautious because, certain zoning things were rewritten because of those mistakes that were made. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, you're 100% making sense. And listen, I get the idea of what you're talking about, right? Because listen, Mordechai, whether you want to admit it or not, you say I'm not powerful, but the fact of the matter is, again, I am going to be able to. People can say whatever they want when I say what I'm going to say next,
Okay.
but everybody looks at everybody that has the black suit on and the hat. They look at you as the exact same person, as part of the exact same group.
Absolutely.
You're all powerful. You're all part of that group of people, right? And I'm not, again, I'm just telling you what the view is, okay? And they don't know there's difference between Orthodox and Hasidic and many different types of Orthodox. It's the same thing as Christian, if you ask me. There's a lot of different variations of Christian, but you all look very similar. So whether you want to admit it or not, you represent that community just by your look, right? And I'm just going off of human nature. That's all I'm saying. Human nature means this is how it's going to be, right? So you are going to wear the brunt of all those things. And some of the things are, like when you say there's no special privilege. So the things I'm steeped in, you look at and I don't know Jackson politics,
Sure,
granted, as much. Manchester right now, let's take them for example. They want to build a mikveh in the middle of their neighborhood. Now, it's a religious center, but it also is a borderline commercial center. It's a service for women, right? If we're being very honest, they nail studio, or you'll not let me have anything in this neighborhood, but you're going to allow this on religious grounds. That to me is what people see, and they go, "This is the double standard."
I could interrupt with that example, and I don't want to talk about Manchester per se, but what I would say is, with that specific example, the town leaders need to do a better job explaining to the residents the local land use laws, the state land use laws, and the federal land use laws, which we all know of our loop. We all know of some of those.
Our loop, yes.
Some of those protections. And I think that's where we're failing, because if no one's gonna be that leader to stand up and say to the residents in Manchester or the residents in Jackson or in Toms River, ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason why we may allow or we may not allow, and no one has the leadership skills to say it and explain it, then yes, the perception is going to be, if that mikvah does get approved in a residential zone, it's just because they bullied their way in. Whereas if we would have leaders who are willing to step up and have a call for a community conversation and say, listen, there's a need for it. Yes, there's also a need for car dealerships. There's also a need for other community centers. And this is what the state law says, and this is what the federal law, and actually explain it to people. I think the perception of favoritism would possibly change. But we've yet to see anyone who's had the political guts to actually get up and call for that roundtable conversation to actually explain why it's needed to the public, and also why is it needed in potentially a residential neighborhood. And then I think maybe the tone would shift from favoritism and specialtism to, okay, there's a bigger need than potentially a commercial auto body shop, and also some of the protections, and maybe some of those threatening languages wouldn't be necessary, or wouldn't be part of the conversation. So
do you really think it's that simple though, bro? Like just talking about it, right? Because the Arlupa laws,
we're talking.
When you look at hold on real quick though, when you look at the Arlupa laws, they favor religions. They don't favor people like myself who aren't a part of a religion, right? So when people like me who want to put a shed in their backyard can't put it within 5 feet of the neighbor, and we have to bring it in, or we have to spend money to get a variance and get a variance lawyer and all this stuff, and it's thousands of dollars to us. And then when you look at something like that, it doesn't seem like it's a community need, right? It seems like it's a one-way community need. And this is what I want to break down. This is the problem. When we talk about community, as a community, I couldn't build that shed 5 feet from my neighbors because it's respect to my neighbors.
But neither could I.
All of them. Right? Hold on, real quick.
Sure.
When you look at something like that mikvah in Jackson, or some of the things that I've got, or a mikvah in Manchester, or some of the things I've gone on in Jackson, some of the things I've gone on in Howell, some of the things I've gone on in Brick, they don't seem to benefit all of the community. They seem to benefit only one community. And that community seems to everybody else in the community like they're trying to build a separate community apart from everybody else, right? And we see this when, like for example, we don't eat at the same restaurants. So when a majority of Jewish people move into Jackson, people in Jackson are experiencing this right now. Jewish people move in, restaurants start going out of business because they don't have the volume, right? And then when that restaurant goes out of business, now they only have one option, which is a kosher option, which starts popping up. And now it's almost like you have a religion that's forced on you instead of being accepting and trying to be part of one main community, right? And I think that's what, if we're really going to talk about the truth, that is the crux of the entire thing. It feels to me like there's two different communities brewing within our community. I love your take on that.
So I'm not going to pretend to be the Wizard of Oz and have an answer to that question, because I do agree that is definitely the crux of a lot of the concerns, a lot of the issues. I don't want to use the word two communities and one communities, but there's a community that has a need that the other community does not have.
Yes.
And I'm going to leave kosher out for a second, but the religious infrastructure that is needed is something that the longtime residents don't have, and it's almost impossible to fully understand it, because it's very hard to explain to someone why this infrastructure is needed if you don't believe in it. And like I said, there's a reason why Arlupa was set up, and it wasn't just set up for the Orthodox Jewish community. It was set up for the Catholics and all the other religions throughout the country. And I think it passed 98. I think it was unanimous in the Senate during the Clinton era when it was passed, but I would have to check it up again. But the reality is that I think the vast majority of the issues do come from a cultural, I don't want to use, I'm going to use the word cultural, a little bit of a clash, is that there are certain needs that the Orthodox Jewish community has that the typical longtime resident in Jackson doesn't have. And I'm not going to pretend to have that magic wand and have that answer. But I think the first step is identifying, like you just said very well, what that issue is. And if we could at least identify, at least we know what the root is. And you can only deal with an issue when you can figure out what the issue is. And
so
I don't have an answer.
The solutions to it. Like, what do you think a good solution is to this? Because I think this is what the crux of the issue is, right? You nailed it. I think you nailed it. Your community does have certain needs that other communities don't have. Women have certain needs, men have certain needs. You're obviously a walking community. Saturday has to be closed down. Listen, and I don't think anybody's having a problem with that. I think what's happening is everybody's bending to that, and it doesn't seem like there's a bend in any other area. What do you think are maybe some solutions to where people like myself could say, we have to have some representation here, right? I get you guys have your needs, but take like a place like Manchester. And I'm using it because it's stuck in my brain, right? You have a situation where people moved into a neighborhood and then had those needs. So they're claiming a hardship, but they also created their own hardship by moving into that area that didn't have what they needed, right? So it's like, why are you trying to move into places and change everything without having the community support? And what is the balancing act? Do you have an idea of maybe what it is? Like when you and Chris start talking, there obviously needs, I think what Jackson has spoken is there has to be a balancing act here, right? What do you think that balancing act could possibly be?
So
I know it's not an easy question.
I'm usually not speechless. It's not my nature.
It's okay.
So,
I know it's a tough question, bro. I'm good at those.
It's a tough question because I'm going to go back to what we said before. The first step has to be a mutual level of communication and dialogue, that people understand that the needs are not meant to drive people out. If people think that the coming of a shul or a mikveh or an eruv or any of the other, I'll call it infrastructure that some of the Jewish community needs, if people are under the impression that infrastructure automatically means they have to leave, then we're never going to get anywhere. So I think the first step is understanding that there is coexistence that could exist and exists throughout the country. And there are many towns and many areas throughout the United States of America where there are shuls in residential neighborhoods. There are well-designed shuls. I think there's a fear and phobia because of some of the overdevelopment and lack of proper planning that occurred in Lakewood, and I'll say it, is that automatically when people hear of the infrastructure that potentially may be needed here, they're automatically associated with the worst of their dreams. And I think the first step is for people is that education. I'm going to go back. I know it sounds a little corny, but that education and understanding that the infrastructure that some of the Jewish community may need, the Orthodox Jewish community may need, does not mean that Mike has to move out of the neighborhood. Once you get past that, then the next step is, okay, if the infrastructure is needed, and yes, we have to keep in mind, as much as we have zoning laws, federal law supersedes state law and state law supersedes municipal law. And when we understand that, then we can say, okay, what could we do as a community to work together to make it that while you're going to have your shul, we can make sure that we put whatever safeguards in place to making sure that the quality of life of our neighborhoods are protected. For example, we could ensure we could have design standards that require the facade to match the residential facade of the neighborhood. I've seen this in other communities where a shul doesn't look like a commercial building. There are other possible requirements that you could have, that the lights are toned down in some neighborhoods, in some towns, in some areas. People like having it dark at night. Some people like having it light, because obviously it depends where you come from. There are certain, and obviously a typical commercial building is going to be lit up, but you could have certain compromises, certain things in place where you can set those things up. You could potentially say large commercial shuls are more difficult for a neighborhood to bear, but we rather a bunch of small shuls, more localized, which, and there's a catch-22. Some people say we'd rather just having one in the neighborhood, one big one, and some people say we'd rather have smaller ones. But I think having those mutual conversations before it becomes an issue. Listen, this is America. You have a right to move wherever you want, and the state and the federal law does say, that is the law, that that it is considered a hardship, even though you're right. The hardship is something you brought into the neighborhood by moving there. But the reality is, if those laws exist, let's work within the confines. The first step is communication and understanding that we are not here to chase anyone out. And just because there's a mikvah or an Eruv or a shul does not mean, if anyone's within an Eruv, does not mean that they can't live there. The proof in the pudding is, go to most big cities in the country, New York City, Washington, D.C., where I'm from, Cleveland, Ohio. Almost every big city in the country has an Eruv. Most people don't even know it exists. So doing it in a way that is as invisible as possible, and doing it in the way as much that it's as little of a hindrance. But I think giving that explanation and then working with I would say a communal group, and it's something Chris and I discussed today, is bringing people together so we could try to figure out solutions where, if it's going to exist, it can exist in the least intrusive way. And again, I'm going to say something, is I do think a big part of the issue is that people are so afraid of what occurred in Lakewood, where the minute they hear that that a shul or a school or a dormitory or anything else which they're not used to, I think smart planning generally could resolve not 100% of the issues, but a vast majority of the issues. And a lot of the Jewish community and Orthodox community will say, hey, we're compromising by doing X, Y, and Z. But if we can't come to that first step of understanding, yes, people have a legitimate fear in Ocean County of Lakewood. And listen, Lakewood has a lot of wonderful things. But the fact is, there's a lot of poor planning that existed over there. And people are afraid when they hear the word shul, they automatically think hundreds of cars. They hear mikvah, hundreds of cars. There is no mikvah, or very few mikvahs that have hundreds of cars at night. That's not the model of a mikvah. But I think understanding that and explaining that, I think, goes a long way.
No, I think, listen, this is why I love that you came on, because what you just said, I think you nailed it, right? And I want to give you an opportunity to say things like this, because I do think there's an essence of, something that they called white flight. When you look at the black versus white thing, there was something called white flight. And it's interesting because when Jews move into the area, all I see is you walking your kids. Like, I do a lot of work, right? One of the best things that I love about working, especially in Jewish neighborhoods, is I could tell when the kids get off the bus. You hear the neighborhood explode. There's kids playing. There's kids riding on bikes. I think it's phenomenal. I think there's a lot of really good things about this. This is why I want you to be here, because I do think there's an element of that. Like, somebody moves in your neighborhood, you go, oh, the neighborhood's shot. You hear that. The neighborhood's gone. And I think that definitely stems from what you just said. Lakewood. I drove down Route 9, and this is not an exaggeration. I just made a video of this, Morty. From the hospital to Route 9, okay? I was cut off by everything. Everything. People walking, a car, a minivan, a bus, a lady. I was driving, and I have a dually with a trailer. A lady, you know how the cars put their nose out like New York style and make everybody else wait and then cut you off? I was cut off by everything. A lady with a stroller. And what happens is, it's not the people that are assholes. It's excuse my language. It's the ridiculous proposition that they're in, or predicament that they're in. They're in a position where they have to cut somebody off to get out of their neighborhood. And I know that because we're overbuilding in brick and has nothing to do with Orthodox Jewish community at all. But where we're overbuilding in my area, I have to cut somebody off just to get out of my neighborhood. And it's frustrating because when you have that much traffic and you have that much garbage, it makes everybody way more edge, and it makes everything more dangerous. And yes, I think you nailed it when they say that people want to avoid what Lakewood turned out to be. How do you make sure, when you have someone like Frank Sadeghi saying that there's going to be 200,000, possibly more people in Jackson, when you said to me the other day that 50% of Jackson you can't build on? So how can you sit there and say that Jackson and Howell and Brick and all these places are not going to turn to Lakewood, because it seems like that's the plan?
Okay, so that's a great question. So I'm not aware, I've said this to many people, I'm not aware of any group of people sitting in a smoky room downstairs somewhere planning to destroy the surrounding towns. No, if such a plan exists, I was not invited to those smoky rooms. And I guess I'm not so powerful after all. But I think there's something called smart development, smart growth. The reality is we live in New Jersey, and we're grappling with it now in Jackson. We have an affordable housing mandate. It's something we don't want. I highly doubt we can find, out of the thousands of Orthodox residents who live in Jackson, 50 people or 100 people who want overdevelopment. No one wants it. But the reality is we live in New Jersey, where someone showed me today, there's a bill that the state is considering now, the Democrat majority, which would allow, if you're a nonprofit, 40, I'm going to say the number quite loud, 40 units per acre with a 20% set aside for affordable housing. That's apartment buildings for low income and moderate income housing. No one feels that Jackson is the right place for that. And I can't speak to Brick and Howell, it's not my town. But Jackson Township does not have the jobs, doesn't have the subway system, a bus system, the opportunities, and the infrastructure to have that type of development. This is New Jersey we live in. So we have a job and a responsibility as elected officials and as community leaders and people with a megaphone like yourself to use it to try to ensure that whatever we are developing is going to be smart. There is going to be development. Anyone who says there's not going to be development is living in a cave, unfortunately. Because there's absolutely going to be development. Our job is to come together and say, be realistic and say, there's going to be development. What can we do to ensure that development is smart? And Jackson is a large enough town where we could possibly, again, I'm not saying this is something we want to do because we don't like any state mandates. We'd rather be in charge of our own destiny. But working within those mandates to the best of our ability to try to control and mitigate some of those concerns. I spoke to commissioners today, and he's a friend of mine. And more than once, I spoke to him again this past Friday. I saw him somewhere in person. And there is no plan. There is no intention. There's no one in the current government who wants to see Jackson turn to a town of 200,000 people. That is larger than Lakewood is right now. Now, obviously, we are a lot. Lakewood has 150,000 people. So it's larger. Obviously, our town is like 3 or 4 times on paper.
150 though, Morty. I hear it's more like 180. It went from 53,000 to I hear it's over 180,000 in the last 18 years, bro. Like that is explosive growth.
Yeah, correct.
You know, and I think you nailed it, man. Like nobody in this area wants to be Lakewood. And the saddest fact of the matter is, like, and I hate to keep banging this drum, but I have to, right? Because I have to be the voice of some of these people. Just the word Lakewood's anti-Semitic. When you say I don't want to be Lakewood, it's viewed as like, you're an anti-Semite just by saying you don't want the traffic, you don't want the cars, you don't want the garbage. And I think that's a lot of the divide. You know, when people are so afraid to even say the word Lakewood now, because it's gotten to that point, I think we've gotten to a point where, like you said, and this is why I love that you're here, because this conversation needs to be had. And what you're saying to me is you're saying that a lot of the Orthodox community don't want the overbuilding. What you're saying to me is a lot of the Orthodox community in Jackson don't want Lakewood, right? Is that really what you're saying? Because I want to get your message out, honestly, Morty. I'm trying to get understanding here.
The average Orthodox resident living in Jackson does not want the development that occurred in Lakewood to come to Jackson. The vast majority of people, I think, understand that there will be development because we live in New Jersey and there are requirements, but also understand that there is a way to do it and there's a smart way to do it. And that smart way is putting the proper restrictions, spreading it out in appropriate locations, trying to make sure that you put in the requirements to make those upgrades to the infrastructure. We don't have a state road like Route 9 to mess up. We have obviously other roads that we can potentially mess up. And our job as elected officials and as planners and as designers of our future is to sit down, and if we're going to take the attitude that we're not going to have development, then the state comes in and the state takes away our autonomy, and we will look like Lakewood. And that's sort of what almost happened with the litigation that Jackson had, because we lost the ability to really control our destiny when it came to religious land use in Jackson.
So talk on that a little bit, because I do think people have to understand that, because Brick went through this as well, especially with the affordable housing mandate. So we got sued. Brick had to come up with an overlay plan. They had to fight, because what a lot of people don't understand is the state and the builders get very unreasonable. And what they tried doing is they tried identifying all of our areas that had vacant lots. And it could have been some of our wetlands. It was some of our DPW, lots. It was every type. Some was private ownership. They had 366 houses or affordable housing units that they tried to stick on us. We did something where it was 29 units with an 88, I think, overlay plan if it came to it. But that satisfied what what they were asking for, or if we didn't do that, we would have lost control of
Sure.
of everything. Why don't you, because you seem very well skilled in this, why don't you
Right.
just give everybody a little bit of a taste on what Jackson is facing?
Sure. So under the former Mayor Reyna, Jackson decided to negotiate with the state instead of fighting like this done in the past, because every time Jackson fought in the past, it ended up getting the raw end of the deal. So we negotiated. We ended up with a number of 1,000 affordable units from the state. The state was originally asking for more. Part of that 1,000 deal was that we still had about 300 left over from the last round, approximately, that the state put into this round. So we had 1,000 covering the third round and the fourth round of affordable housing. We have multiple developers who are challenging our affordable housing plan right now. Part of the state of New Jersey usually stands with developers. That's just the reality. So if we go ahead and we put our head in the sand and we don't come up with an appropriate plan, each of those developers then can just go to the state and say, we want to be part of that plan, and the state will grant it to them. Even now, when in my opinion, develop the plan, and we are allowing development, we still have developers saying it's not enough. We have developers who are given a third of an acre zoning for their developments. We're saying we want 8 houses per acre, or when we said 8, we had developers saying we want 12, and the state is actually entertaining them. Now we're confident we're going to win. We're confident we developed the plan. And when we got on the phone with the judge 2 weeks ago, the judge actually said, is Jackson has the upper hand in this conversation because you developed the plan. If we had walked in without developing a plan, then every one of those developers would have went into the courts and asked for made their asks and potentially would have won. So I am confident with the plan that we submitted to the state. There's obviously questions that we still need to iron out, is that we're able to defend it. And my attitude, and I said this on the phone, and I think usually only attorneys speak, but I actually asked the attorney to speak, and she granted me that permission. And I said to the judge, I said, Your Honor, I said, I don't understand why we're being asked to allow more than we allowed when we developed the plan. And the judge's response was, Councilman, as long as your plan is legit, you guys are on good footings. It's when you don't have a legitimate plan where the state comes in. And again, the proof in the pudding is this ridiculous state bill that the Assembly is introducing now to allow 40 units on an acre. I don't think the residents realize what that means. We're talking about apartment buildings in Jackson. So I would rather be proactive, be in control of our zoning and our land use than allow some outside entity. Yes, there's going to be changes. There's going to be development that people don't want. But if we go ahead and we at least put the restrictions in, then we're in charge. If the state comes in, the state will say, 1 second, Jackson, you said 16% open space. No open space. You said extra parking requirements. No extra parking requirements. We looked at Lakewood, and I'm going to be honest. We looked at Lakewood. We looked at Howell. We looked at Brick. Maybe not Brick. Lakewood and Howell a little bit. We looked at some of their affordable plans, and we said we want to make sure we're doing better than them. That's really how we developed our plans. It wasn't hard looking at some of those towns. But the minute we go ahead and lose the ability to write these plans and write these ordinances, what is going to occur is a state saying, okay, developer, you own 100 acres, 1,000 units. And now where we developed it, we said 16% open space. We said it's not gross acreage, it's net acreage. We said for every house, besides for the parking, the developer also needs to pay for extra parking spots, because we all know people have parties, people have gatherings, people have Sunday football, people have prayer groups where there's going to be parking. We said you have to build a community center for every 75 units. Now we were smart. In surrounding towns, they calculate the square footage for the parking requirements just based on the upstairs. We said we know that the history has proven, you go to any development, there's basements, and basements may be unfinished now, but are going to be finished eventually. And then where are they going to park? So we require parking even for raw unfinished basements. So if the minute we go ahead and we're not in control of our destiny, all of those extra requirements that we threw on developers, we put in our ordinance that developers need to pay for all the sidewalks abutting the property on the county roads. If the minute we're not in charge of our zoning, why would the state make that requirement? So by putting
They won't.
They won't. Of course they won't. We also put in the developer needs to make a written request to the county requesting road widening. Now, is that enough? It's not enough because it's up to the county, but at least the developer will put that in writing, and then the county can then work with them because these are county roads. So there's a lot of other things. We build a phasing plan. We said for every development, I know, Mike, you and I had this conversation about commercial, but we said we've been around, we look around Jackson, there are developments, I don't want to talk about them specifically, which promise commercial, which never built their commercial. And they just end up with rooftops. We want to make sure that doesn't occur. So we put a phasing plan. After you get to 25% of your units, you can't go ahead and build something else until you provide for the amenities, until you provide for the recreation, for the community center and the commercial. So my concern is if we're not proactive as a municipality, and thankfully I think we have a council which is proactive, then the state comes in and says, okay, Jackson, you didn't create a plan. We're creating the plan for you. And the history shows, if you look at the plans the state provides, then we're going to be Lakewood. So I rather not let the state turn us into Lakewood. I rather us stop the overdevelopment and control the development. It's going to be development, but it's not going to be 200,000 people. If we allow the state to do it, we will end up with Frank Sudeikis 200,000 people. And I say,
and it's interesting because once again, you sound a lot like Chris. You sound like a lot like Chris's campaign, and I think a lot of people out there would love to believe you, right? And this is why I love that you're coming on, because maybe you could dispel some of these things. Because let's dispel one other thing. You want to clear up anything with Adventure Crossing? Am I right? Was it Adventure Crossing? What was the?
I'm going to be very careful here because we are under litigation. So I'm just going to say very carefully. Adventure Crossing, the council last year, about 12 months ago, passed an ordinance. We found a loophole in their development plans, which calculated the acreage based on gross acreage instead of net. Now, just to explain to your viewers, gross acreage means that you can even count the non-buildable space as part of your development plan, which means a higher density. You can count wetlands, buffers, and what's already developed. We realize that's bad zoning because instead of 8 acres, 8 units per acre, you can end up with like 13 or 14. And it's going to be a horrible, besides for the fact that people aren't going to want to live there, that's overdevelopment. So we went ahead and passed an ordinance, passed on second reading, to go ahead and to turn to net acreage. Now, what happened is the developer sued, as I'm sure many of your viewers saw. And when we went to the court system, the court has certain issues with our ordinances that we pass. Some of them most of them being technical concerns. So the government last month went ahead and reintroduced it to about 6 weeks ago with the same ordinance, the same teeth to it, requiring net acreage. And obviously some of the media sites or some of the blogs said that we stalled and were hesitating. The reason why we stalled and hesitated is really because we needed the planning board to hear it. The planning board did hear it. And as I told Chris today, it is tentatively on our agenda for the coming meeting on the 25th to pass into the second reading. And obviously we're still under litigation. And because we're still under litigation, I don't want to talk about the specifics, but I am pretty confident that we have good attorneys who are going to represent. And I think our affordable housing plan shows that we do not believe in gross acreage being the right way to rule, because gross acreage means that you count in your development plans acreage which are not buildable, and that's, to me, bad planning.
So
again, I'm just going to add into
I don't think you could say anything else really. Unless I'm not going to follow up on that. Let's talk about one other thing that I know is a big issue. And when I asked the mayor what her solution was of brick, she didn't really have a very good one.
Is that Lisa?
I think it's a very difficult, like, not to crack. I think we got to get the state involved in it, but it is the LLCs and what do they call them in Jackson? Boarding houses, I believe it's called. What's your take on LLCs buying houses and renting them to certain groups of people to diminish the value, to possibly drive other people out, make other people uncomfortable where they live? I mean, we know these are tactics that are used. What's your take on LLCs buying houses, the corporations buying houses, big groups buying them? Is there anything that can be done to curb it?
So it's a loaded question.
Yes, it is. I know it is.
And I'm going to say a disclaimer, and then I'll talk about the meat and potatoes.
Okay.
Again, as I said before with development, I think this is something where 99.8% of Jackson residents, from longtime residents to newer residents to Jewish residents to non-Jewish residents, all residents would like to see people living in the homes who abide by the rules, by the law, people who are hopefully planning on staying settled there. And single family homes need to remain single family homes. That is something I think everyone could agree to. And I think if you did a poll among, I'll call it just the Orthodox Jewish communities, 99.8% of them, I would almost venture to say 100. I still like saying 100 because that one guy raises their hand. Everyone is going to say that they do not like it. I have in my own neighborhood that I see it with my own eyes. That being said, I don't like using the word LLC bought homes for a very simple reason. I've been living in my home since 2015 in Jackson. Tomorrow, if I want, I can put my house under an LLC. The LLC is just a legal way of sometimes people having coverage for whatever reason, they don't like having their houses under their own names. They put houses under LLC. So I don't like using that term. What I like using is investor-owned homes, which are not owner occupied. Now, there's nothing wrong with buying a property and renting it out. People do that all the time. But there's two types of people who buy homes and rent it out. There's the type of people who plan on moving there one day, and they bought a house, good price, and they're not ready to move there yet. They rent out their house to cover their mortgage. I have no problem with those type of people. They're community based. They want to live in their neighborhood. They want their neighborhood to be nice when they move there. Then you have the other type, which are investors, corporate investors. Some of them live locally in Ocean County. Some of them live throughout the tri-state, and some of them live overseas. I have a house in my neighborhood, which is almost positive owned by an overseas corporation. Those are the people which I have a problem with. And again, if they have a right to buy, it's America. Anyone has a right to buy property. But the same way, I think we have a problem on the national level with the Chinese buying up property throughout our country for safety and security reasons. I think we're going to have the same thing in our local residential neighborhoods. No one wants to see people buying up homes who don't care about the neighborhoods, because then they hire these corporate management companies, and these corporate management companies are looking for the top dollar. They don't care about the neighborhood. So that to me is identifying the issue. Now, what can we do as a town? So unfortunately, we live in New Jersey again, which is a sanctuary state. Someone asked this question by a council meeting. Because we're a sanctuary state, the local council and the local PD cannot call ICE. And the PD, if again, this is what I was told, if PD would call ICE, residents can call ICE. Residents can call ICE left and right. But it's not just ICE, which is the issue. It's the fact is, are they being used? Some of them are legal, but they're two families living in a home. Two families living in a home is bad for the school system, bad for the neighborhood, and it's a misuse of our local. So what I will say in Jackson is we recently enacted a new inspection ordinance, which is going to require a yearly inspection of these homes for safety and well-being. On Thursday night, we passed the second reading of our fee ordinance, which would establish the salary range of our new inspectors. Myself and the mayor, and I mentioned to Chris today, I hope he can be part of this, are going to be hopefully engaging in the hiring process over the next 2 to 4 weeks to hire people who are going to be engaged in this process. I spoke today with one of our attorneys together with Chris. We're going to do a full, thorough review of our ordinances. I do think we have pretty thorough ordinances in Jackson. It's an enforcement issue. And I think, and again, I'm only speaking from not knowledge 100%, but I think sometimes these corporations and investors know the system. They know the loopholes. They know how to cheat the system. So we can have all the code enforcement we want. So obviously our first step is engaging with code enforcement, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Assuming that they are, the next step is, okay, code is doing what they're doing. Why is this issue not going away? And I think bringing in awareness, Chris and I mentioned today, we're going to be putting hopefully on our website a list of all the rentals in town. So if you're able to look and see, hey, there's a house in my neighborhood being rented, it's not on the list. That means they never register with the landlord registration. It will be easier for the town than for people to report it. But I do think we can do more. I'm not sure what more we could do, but I do think we can do more. And I think it's something that I think any legislation that's actually going to make a difference. I don't believe in doing legislation that just to make people feel good if it doesn't change anything.
Good.
We've been down that road a long time. I'm not a big believer in big government. Extra fees and extra things like that are useless. I want to see tangible results. So the first step is, and I spoke to our attorney with Chris today, is a full audit of our current ordinances. What do we have on the books? Are they being enforced? Are they not being enforced? Where are the loopholes? And from what I understand from our attorney today, she told me, she's like, Morty, we have some pretty strict ordinances. So why are they not resolving the issue? And then, like you said before, some of these are state issues. And I do think this goes back to the first part of the conversation we started 40-something minutes ago, is we're not being heard by the state. And the reason why we're not being heard by the state is we don't carry the same level of votes as Trenton and Newark do. And
100%.
we have as a community, and I say this to Ocean County.
And you're Republican.
Well, correct.
Let's face facts. I mean, you're Republican. Ocean County got hammered by the state of New Jersey because we are the reddest area in the country, in the state. I don't care what anybody wants to say. That's just the facts. All right. And the fact that I mean, a lot of it went out that the Orthodox community was unanimously really voting for, Jack Ciattarelli. Mikey Sherrill, you wouldn't believe is going to look favorably upon that, right? I mean, you would think. I know I'm putting you in a weird position right now. I get it.
I am not going to respond because
right,
I also wear the title of Republican Club President in Jackson. I am a staunch Republican, but I also do believe we need to have an open working relationship with whoever the governor is, because we have to do what's best for our constituents in Jackson, Ocean County, and throughout the
I
area.
get it, but you're the state, like you said, you're fighting the state, and I get that. I get it, and one of the things I think that like Chris was talking about was how you in particular, honestly, and Mayor Kuhn were trying to defund the inspectors in Jackson. How do you fight the state with inspectors if you're defunding the inspectors? Is that true? Are you trying to defund them, or are you just trying to what's the word? Maybe reorganize everything?
Okay, so I don't want to speak I don't want to say anything pertaining to Chris in particular, because I've committed that we're going to turn a new leaf and we're going to try to work together. But I disagree very much with the assessment. Okay. And I'm going to respond to your question. I believe in having a code enforcement agency. I absolutely agree with that. Sometimes in order to properly, there's different ways of fixing issues. Sometimes you fix it by just putting Band-Aids on. Sometimes you fix it by doing a little bit more surgery. And sometimes you have to look at a department and say, okay, people have been there for a long time. Sometimes you need to restructure. We're a civil service town. And again, I'm not going to speak about personnel in particular, but I am very much in support of a full-fledged code enforcement. I do believe that sometimes in government, you have to look at a department and figure out how you can utilize them in the best way possible. And I'm not sure if everyone was being utilized 100% correctly, but I will say, since in the past 6 weeks, I've had many conversations with many members of the code enforcement, and I'm better understanding their perspective, and hopefully I'll be able to make a more informed decision as the new year comes. So to all those code enforcement officers, 1 second, to all those code enforcement officers listening, I do respect the work that they're doing, and I'm trying to be as much of an educated consumer as possible before we make any decisions.
But if we're being very honest, Morty, and I'll say it for you, like your guy's job is to make sure everybody in that government is working efficiently and working well and working the way they're supposed to be working. And let's face facts. There's every, and I'll say it for you because I know that was a great answer, but I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, every department has areas where they need to improve, no matter who they are. Brick, Jackson, Howell, U.S. government under Trump. We both support Trump. There are areas in our government where everybody needs to improve. That includes the individuals that are working there, and I will say it there. I think the last thing I'd say on the LLC thing, or the investor-owned properties, however you wanted to put it, is I think it's the 2 doorbell, 1 family per room stuff that I think everybody's seeing a problem with. And if you guys could figure out a way to address that, I think that would go a really long way. Listen, Morty, I know it's late, and this is a Sunday night, and this show's going to come out probably in about 4 days from now. But we're 55 minutes in, and you have been very gracious with your time. We're obviously running late, and I think I've covered everything. If there's something I haven't covered that you think is relevant, you want to touch on, or any last words, I really appreciate your time and the fact that you even came on. So I'm going to give you the floor, man. Tell me something that I need to understand maybe you, to maybe understand the Orthodox community, to maybe understand what you're doing in Jackson. You take it wherever you want. The last bunch of minutes are yours.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And feel free to interrupt me. And ask any questions as I speak. So a couple things. I think people ask me about my working relationship with Chris, Chris going forward. And I said, listen, it's a new leaf. I think there was a lot of rhetoric that was said by the campaign season, which is political season, or we call it nonsense season sometimes. But I do believe that if people give Chris a fair shot and give the current council a fair shot, they're going to see many of what I met with him today, and 90%, like I said before, of his agenda are things that I agree to. We discussed renters. We discussed overdevelopment. We discussed a whole litany of others. It's been a long day, so I don't remember them all now.
It's okay. Yeah, you don't have to go through.
And I think if people are willing to put past the stigma and the dress, and are willing to just look past the personality, sometimes there's a lot of personality between the mayor's office and council. and look past it and actually come and have an honest conversation, they're going to see. That's really what Chris and I did. I've had conversations over the years with many people who have not always agreed with me 100%, but I think when they actually sit down, and I think one thing about the current council, and I'm very proud of the current council, every single one of them, whether it's Mr. Borelli, whether it's Mr. Bresci, Mr. Palmieri, or now Mr. Pollack, I think every one of us are people who do want to make a difference and are reachable. We've enacted open hours now in town hall. We're going to be doing more. Chris brought up a great idea. We're going to be doing more where we're available. As you see over here, I am not someone who shies away from hard and tough conversations. We're here. We're ready to listen. I think sometimes we appreciate the ideas. Our job, I think what we could do better, and I'll say this to your listeners, is communicating what our limits and what our abilities are and explaining the challenging and the tough decisions. And one of the frustrations that what I'm realizing is been a lot of tough decisions that have been made over the years where no one's had the guts and the leadership skills to explain why those decisions aren't being made. So I am looking forward, and I said this to Chris, and I said this to my colleagues, we're going to be moving forward with some of our affordable housing ordinances in the near future, but actually explaining to people what the process was. There was no smoke-filled room deep underground somewhere where we made decisions which lots. There was a process that was played out, and why we feel these are good for Jackson, what the alternative is if we don't vote for these. And I think that communication is going to go a long way. But what I will say is, and I think this is for your listeners, the average Orthodox person, and I say the average, and I mean the high average Orthodox person living in Jackson, Toms River, Manchester, Howell, Brick, all the surrounding towns in Ocean and Monmouth County now, share the same view. We all want a quality of life. Now, there's obviously going to be differences because for us, a quality of life includes having a shul in a residential neighborhood. For the average person who's lived there for a long time, that obviously doesn't. We all want a quality of life, and a quality of life means we don't want overdevelopment. We don't want traffic on our roads. We want safe neighborhoods. We want neighborhoods where we can walk down the street and not worry about who's coming out of the next door neighbor's house. Is it one family, two families? Which country they just come out of illegally? People want their safe neighborhoods. And I think we all share the same thing. And I think if we sit and talk, we're going to realize, I know Chris has been doing a great job in trying to get to know the various people in town. It's something I think we could all learn from. And but I do think most people will tell you they don't want Jackson to look like Lakewood. And again, Lakewood has a lot of wonderful things. It's a town which is, yes, I'm going to disagree with you on that one. There's a lot of wonderful things in Lakewood. It's a great, okay. I'll let you.
Hold on. I will give you this. I think Lakewood looks better than it did 20 years ago because I think it was very run down 20 years ago.
I am not saying Lakewood is a well-planned and well-developed town. That's not what I meant.
It's disjointed and ridiculous, if we're being very honest with you.
There's but I think no one in Jackson and no one in the surrounding towns wants their town to look like Lakewood. And the way to avoid that is by working together and sitting down and coming up with great ideas. If we're going to pretend like development is never going to happen, we're going to fight everything. Yeah, we're going to have the state of New Jersey. We're going to have the federal government coming in and dictating. And we had that in 2016 when Jackson Township went maybe a little bit too far and made some mistakes where you had the feds and you had the state make certain decisions that probably could have been done possibly a little bit differently. And now our job is to sit by collectively and say, okay, what can we do to do things better? So I appreciate you, Mike, having you on. This was not scary at all. I look forward to coming. I hope you invite me back again soon.
I hope it wasn't scary. I don't know why everybody thinks, nobody wanted to come on. Morty, this is why, I respect you very much and the position you're in because, I've asked other Orthodox people to come on the show. Nobody wants to do it. It's not just everybody in my own council didn't want to come on. Half the Republicans on the Republican side didn't want to come on. Half the Democrats did. Everybody that I ask does not want to come on this show. And all I'm trying to do is say, listen, we are all one people. When you get to local politics, I don't care what it is. There's no Republican, there's no Democrat. And if we're being very honest, there's no Jewish and everything else. I'm trying to get over this. I don't like the feeling that I've told you this before in person. I don't like the feeling that there's two communities. I don't like the feeling that one community looks at another community and some people view that one community looks down on the other and some, look down. I feel it's a mutual misunderstanding. And whether people get over that misunderstanding or not, I would like the fact that you came on and had this conversation to me goes a very long way. And it shows that you are, and if you ask me, I think you're a very well-spoken, very, very, very good representative of your community, dude. And I realized this when I spoke to you the first time when it was just me and you.
I'm stopped.
Sorry, go ahead.
Our community.
So, exactly,
yes.
and that's isn't that the problem though? And I'm trying, and I am stuck in it. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm stuck in it. I do view it as your community, my community, and I think I think it's wrong, and I'm struggling with it. That's why I wanted you on the show to talk about this, because you're right. This is our community, and the fact that you said that, I think, goes a long way, man. I hope that we could do this more. And me and you maybe could air out some grievances, and I could speak from one side, you could speak from the other side, because you know what? Right now, what I see is an incredible misunderstanding between two communities that seem like you said, you agree with 90% of the things that Chris said, and I could back that up from the conversation that we had that wasn't aired. I think I was talking to the same type of person. I was talking to the same person that had very similar ideas. And I think that needs to be shown. And I really appreciate you coming on. Morty, listen, man, I know, are you up for re-election next year?
No, I got 3 more years.
You got 3 more years. That's right.
I'm not running for election.
So you just got in, right? So it's a 4-year term?
4-year term. So I'm here for the goodness, because this is not a political stump speech.
So you know what? And coming out right now shows you that you're not doing it for political reasons. I mean, maybe you are, but whatever it is, like, I look at you honestly as a guy that does care about the community, and someone that one of the things that struck me was you are very well in depth with what's going on in the town, whether you agree with you or not, whether we could go back and forth. You are very knowledgeable about your town. I think you're a very good representative of your town. I appreciate you coming on and having the guts to sit here. Anything else, man? Like I said, last words. I don't want to talk. I gave you the last words, and I talked over him. So last words.
So I'll end up with one thing. So you said before a line about my community, our community, and I just want to reiterate. So anyone who knows me, I'm pretty accessible. I have multiple ways of reaching out to me via email, via phone. I would say 90% of what I do during the day is actually I'm going to use the word for the general Jackson. And I don't like terminate, whether it's PD matters, whether it's roadway, whether it's the seniors. There's so many things going on in town that I say people follow me and you'll see there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of exciting things going on. But if anyone ever needs anything, I'm the council president for the entire town. My job is to represent the whole town. You can reach me by emailing me at mbernstein, BURNSTEIN at jacksontwpnj.net. I do try generally to respond to every email within a couple hours. It doesn't always happen. I have a day job also when I get to it. And I also could be reached via phone. And I'm just going to read my number into the record, also into your thing for a second. It's a new phone number, so I apologize. I have to look it up for a second. 732-966-3754, 732-966-3754. I am reachable. And I am looking forward to getting to know more Jackson residents. Please don't call me if you're not from Jackson, just because there's a limit to what I can do. But we're here, and we're looking forward to continuing to serve all of our constituents. And you definitely, you're saying here on the breakdown that you represent all of Jackson and not one specific community. Correct. Anyone can call me, and anyone does call me. And I obviously have to learn better how to micromanage my time, because I only have 24 hours a day and 6 days a week that I work. But I always joke on Shabbos and Saturday, I like walking elsewhere because I don't like seeing people, because it's like my only day to breathe on my own. But I had someone come to me a couple weeks ago. I was taking out my garbage Friday afternoon, a half hour before sundown. Councilman stopping the car and said, "Councilman, I have this idea for the neighborhood for a safety issue. Could we get this done?" And I said, "You realize I'm taking out my garbage?" She's like, "Yeah, I want to catch you quickly." That idea is actually happening in the next 3 or 4 days. People stop me all the time, and whether they're Orthodox or not Orthodox. Yes, so my number is available. My email is available for any resident in Jackson. You can reach out to me, not from Jackson also, but please let me know that, so I don't, I try to prioritize Jackson first, but we are available, we are reachable, and we want to make a difference. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Let me tell you something, everybody from Jackson, everybody, honestly, from Ocean County. I think Morty gave you an insight into that community. Now, whether you take it for what it is, I believe he's an honest in what he said, because he's the story hasn't changed in a couple of times we have spoke. So what I would love for everybody to do is this. Take this conversation and have a conversation with other people. And that way we could get everything going until we can become one community. Because one thing I think both me and you could agree with, Morty, right, is the fact that we are going to be one community, period. No one's going anywhere, right? And I think something has to happen to where understanding takes place. And the fact that you were willing to come here, have this conversation, like you said, it wasn't that scary. This shouldn't be this big of a deal. We should not be lobbing names at each other. We should not be calling each other different things. I should not be pointing fingers. I should not be afraid of you. You should not. There should be no anti-whatever. This should just be community issues. You're community members. I'm community members, and we should be doing it that way. And I think we're all going to be better served when we realize that. And the fact that you said that you represent all of the people, I think that's going to go a really long way, man. I really appreciate you being here. Everybody, Mordechai Bernstein, he reached out to me. I challenged him on Facebook, and he is the only person who has ever gotten to me, and he called me and said, I am willing to come on. Let's go. Let's do it. We had a conversation, and now he's here. There is incredible respect given to you for that, Morty. Thank you very much, dude. Good luck everything with Jackson going forward. Good luck with working with Chris. I think you two could get together and do really, really good things for both communities to where it could become one. It has to happen. I'm rooting for you guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Mordechai Bernstein. Stay right there, everybody. Well, there you have it, everybody. I'll give you a couple quick thoughts about, and I said way too much. I'm only going to do like 2 minutes earlier. I think if we don't give, if we don't have any communication like this, we're going to be stuck in our sides lobbing bombs. And the bombs are assumptions and theory or conspiracy, whatever you want to call them, versus name calling. Both sides are going to lob bombs at each other. And I think we've seen that in the world. I think we've seen that everywhere. And I don't know. I don't know if Ocean County really wants to have a religious fight like other areas of the world have. And that's really what we're staring at. So if we don't have understanding and we don't have conversation and we don't have reality taking place, then what are we headed for? This is your time right now, everybody, to call me whatever you want, to call Morty whatever you want. The proof is going to be in what happens from right now. When have you ever heard anybody from any community air out some grievances, tell you where we want to go, tell you what's on their mind in this area? When have you heard it? Never. So I'd appreciate it if everybody shares this. I'd appreciate it if you get this out. I'd appreciate it if you show a little interest in this and we can have these conversations further going forward in a respectful way. Not a way where we're calling names, not a way where we're just bringing hate, and not a way when the worst of us comes out at each other. Because I don't know how much that's going to solve. Now, at the end of it, it may result in a fight. It may. But have you ever heard people, before they fight, talk a lot of crap? Go, hit me, man. Hit me. Yo, you hit me. Well, you swing first. Swing first, bro. Swing first. Try to avoid that shit. I want to sit down and have a beer and say, where do we agree? Where do we disagree? Where are our problems at? Can we figure out our problems? And if we can't figure out our problems, then it is what it is. But nobody has actually sat down and tried to figure out our problems. And I think he might be somebody that may be interested in doing so. The proof is going to be what happens going forward. So now you all heard this. You hold me accountable to whatever you want to hold me accountable to. You hold Morty accountable to what you want to hold him accountable to. But At least now you've heard it, you've seen it, and maybe we could open up some dialogue, and maybe you could stop coming from a position of hate, while the hate may still be there on either side. But maybe we start trying to understand what's going on. And a lot of you understand what's going on, and that's great. That's the point of this. We all want to understand what's going on so we can all move forward together or separate or however it's going to be. What I'm trying to do is just bring you truth, bring you honesty. And you know what? God forbid a little bit of stuff that we disagree with, because I think that's incredibly healthy for us as a community. Remember something, guys. We're all doing this shit together. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care you're left, you're right, you're Democrat, you're Republican. I voted for Trump 3 times. Ocean County doesn't matter with that. Brick Township does not matter. When it comes right and left, it does not. These are not right and left issues. These are our own separate issues that we have to figure out. And it's not going to be figured out by not talking to one another. It's not. That I am sure of. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to end it with this. There's a lot of people out there for whatever reason that are worried about me for speaking God's honest truth. I'm going to tell everybody, and I'm going to reiterate this what I'm about to say. Everybody could be scared for me. My wife could be scared. My family could be scared for me. I'm not. I don't believe I'm doing anything wrong. I don't believe that I should be in danger for what I'm speaking in America. And if what I'm saying in this country gets called me a name, fine. But if it threatens my life when I'm being respectful, then we're going to have a totally different conversation, right? And I hope this is where people of both sides will come to my defense. Because right now, if I'm in danger, and I mean this, if I'm in real danger from any group, what does that say about our society? What does that say about anything we have going on? That a person that's coming out and is willing to air out some of the things that is on many of the people's minds in Ocean County, and something we can all feel building up. But I may be in danger for being the one that tries to have a conversation. So I'm just going to tell you right now, if anything happens to me, what are you going to do? Honestly. One thing I hope you don't do is have some bullshit vigils like they did with Charlie Kirk. Don't do that. But you know what? How about you can do something that he always was a giant proponent of? Talk. Stop avoiding conversation and talk. And maybe when we all start talking, maybe we could all come to an agreement to where we could all live together. Or we could keep fighting about which God is the best. We could keep fighting about which people are the fucking chosen ones, because you all think you are. And we could keep fighting with each other nonstop. We have a couple choices here, people. I'm going to try to talk. And when talking doesn't work, then there's action. Right now, we're going to talk. I hope everybody can be civil on my page. I've seen what happened to other pages. And these other pages let it get out of control and let the disrespect get out of control, and they got shut down. I'm about free speech. I'm not going to censor you guys. I'm hoping that you, no matter where you're from, can have the respect for me, because I've respected all of you and I've respected every single group here, that you're not going to get ridiculous on my page to get it shut down. I hope you're going to finger the hell out of my like button. You're going to finger that share button. and you're going to help grow this page instead of trying to hurt it. There's going to be a lot of people trying to hurt this page and what I'm trying to do. But I hope that I could get a group of like-minded individuals, no matter what the religion is, no matter what your political side is, to come and stand for what's right. This is your chance to call me whatever the fuck you want to call me. Excuse my language. I try to keep this family friendly. Call me whatever you want. I don't care. I'm going to continue to bring you the honest conversations. Thank you guys very much for joining me. Thank you very much for being interested in this. I hope I didn't disappoint, but if I did, I will try to do better. Criticize me in productive ways, because I am a mason contractor. I am not a professional journalist. I am not a trained reporter. I'm a guy looking out for what's right. So if you support this, I appreciate you guys talking about this. Get this out. Get to know Morty. Hold him accountable for what he said here. He's the one leading your town, not me. I'm just the one trying to get you the information. And let me tell you something. I call myself the caltrop. And a caltrop is an area defense weapon. If you've ever seen Saving Private Ryan, when they got onto the beach, you had those big metal things that look like X's on the beach. Those are caltrops. They're area defense weapons. And when you guys stop buying into the BS that you're being thrown and you start really listening to the reality of it, you become your own caltrop. And I want, somebody said it on my page earlier, a caltrop army, a caltrop navy, full of seamen, whatever we want to do. I don't care. I want a group of like-minded individuals that's pulling for what's good for all of us, not for one group of people. It has to be what's good for all of us. And it starts with you, the individual. Make yourself awesome. Make yourself a caltrop. Turn yourself into a person where you're your own area defense weapon that's free from the bullshit, the propaganda, the misunderstandings. Stop yourself from falling into that trap. But I'm going to be here to try to help you guys out. I'm Mike Calderese. This is the Brick Breakdown. I am the caltrop. This caltrop is out. Thank you.